Hello and welcome to CLEA'S World. I am Clea, and today I would like to share with you more of the information I've received from the 25th dimension during my last QHHT Hypnosis session. I'll be reading from a transcript of the session, and when I refer to Lorrayne, I'm speaking to my practitioner who's asking me questions I've prepared in advance of the session, and when I refer to me, I'm referring to myself under hypnosis, which means the answers are coming from a 25th. So I'm going to jump in here. And actually, the first question is one of Lorrayne's own questions. So here she is asking, I have a very quick question and no need to elaborate on the answer, but I'm feeling the call to take a trip back to California to see my father and up to Idaho to see my brother. And I'm wondering, this will be the first part of September. I'm wondering if my higher self is going to allow this to be an easy, joyful, and supported trip. In other words, all the resources I need to make this trip, everything is flowing easily, which is my intent. And just as an FYI, I'm sharing this question and answer with Lorrayne's permission because I do find it helpful, as in instructional in many ways. It refers to some things the 25th has already told us, and I find repetition useful, at least for myself. So I hope this is also helpful for some of you. But also the 25th is referring to this in the final message to bring home the final words of wisdom that they want to share with us. And therefore, I asked Lorrayne for this reason if I could share it. And she graciously said I could. So here we go. Here's the 25th. Me. Yes. So if your intention is to, we're just talking about trips, for example, in terms of why couldn't we just take a trip somewhere? And they mean like while we're waiting here, while we feel stuck, why can't we improve our lives and do something fun? Why couldn't we just take a trip to Fiji, for example? So we were talking about in terms of why couldn't we just take a trip somewhere? If your intention is to have something that is a distraction to you and that is fairly rid of problems and anything that might turn it into something that becomes a chore of some kind or heavy, then yes, absolutely. That is going to go exactly the way that you wish it to go. At the same time, we will tell you that it is going to become even more obvious to you because we know that you have dealt with a lot of this emotionally already. But we've also already told you that all of us are extremely emotional about this NPC situation. And it is going to become even more obvious to you that you are dealing with NPCs. It's not quite going to go or going to feel the same way that it felt when you went to see your mother, where you had a wonderful time. So we want you to be aware of this. And if you do, if this is something that you do as part of your work, at the same time as you are distracting yourself and also taking in the pleasure of spending more time with your brother and your father, then absolutely, we would say yes. However, we have mentioned this before to you, that you do assume that you're always going to be unemotional about things because very much this is your logical mindset and personality. However, you are not a robot. And there will be stuff coming up for you. So we will warn you that for the simple reason, and not warn you as telling you one way or the other. This is, as always, only your choice. But we do want to bring this up because this is something that you have to be aware of. And you will know exactly what we're referring to when you go inside and think on this. And, consider your trip, your upcoming trip. So depending on what you're trying to achieve out of it, then it might be absolutely worth it to you. We are not saying in any way that it will be unpleasant, but we are saying that this is going to bring up another layer of the emotion that we're dealing with here for you as well, even though you have said many times that you already said goodbye to your loved ones. Lorrayne, and this may be why I'm feeling compelled. This is not this might be a nice distraction. I'm feeling compelled that this is something I need to do. And I know that, it's all NPCs, but maybe it's my way of saying goodbye to this old earth. I don't know, but I know it's going to be an emotional trip. And maybe that's why I need to go. Because of course, Lorrayne is super aware of her connection and she's always very introspective. So she was aware of all of this already as she asked the question. Me, yes, and absolutely, you're always supported, Lorrayne. You're always connected. You're aware of always being connected. Nothing can go in a way that you cannot handle or you cannot control. Everything is your doing. And absolutely, we are one. We are always there. At the same time, we just want you to be aware of all the facets of this experience that you want to have. As we always say in response to many questions that we get, what is the experience that you're setting up for yourself? What are you trying to get out of this? What are you setting up? Because you know you set up everything. So we just asked we just mentioned this because you asked, of course, but also because you already know the answer. You already know what to prepare for and what you're setting up. Because as introspective as you are, of course, you already know what you're going to find. But in terms of, will it be easy in terms of logistics and everything? Yes, it will be just fine because you wouldn't be able to handle all of it. You're not going to set yourself up with this becoming a nightmare of some sort. So in that sense, yes, it will be fine. I mean, small snags might come up because, of course, this is what we expect from reality, but not anything major that you need to concern yourself with. Lorrayne, well, I'm thinking if I can plan this right, I can actually come by and visit Clea. Clea would love that. She would love to have you. And she did come by just for a few short hours, which was unfortunate, but it was wonderful. It was so incredible to meet in person one of you guys. And of course, Lorrayne being a person who's allowed a lot of these sessions to happen. So it was actually really emotional because all of us were not used to seeing people who were not NPCs anymore. And I actually could feel how alive she was, how different she felt. And I was like, oh, goodness. So it was emotional for me, but it was wonderful. And it did go well. She had a positive experience in terms of what she wanted to do. So this is great. All right, so now we're moving into the section about dreams. As you know, I share some of my dreams when they are meaningful, as you guys also do in the Telegram group. And some of you have done on the channel here on YouTube. And it's great because whenever I hear something that I'm not sure about, that I cannot interpret based on what the 25th has interpreted before, then I will ask in the following session. So please keep them coming. I know many of you are interested in dreams, and dreams really are a very direct way for us to get information, even though sometimes it's not very clear. It's clear as mud, as we like to say. And that's why I asked the 25th. So here we go. Here's the first dream. Lorrayne. So now we're moving into dreams. So this dream is from the 10th of August. And so the day that I had the session, because this often happens, that they'll send me a dream day that I have a session right in the morning before the session, because it's what is based on the questions I've been asking. So where are we at to what's going on? So they'll send me a dream right before the session so that I know what's happening. So Clea says, I was on the back of a flying broom with an older man who I think was my dad. And we were flying somewhere with two girlfriends of mine following us on another broom. But at a junction, we went straight by mistake and they went right and we lost them. We got to the place we were going to, but I wanted to go find them and went to another place that felt a little different, like a different world, a village out of time and space, like where a cult would live. While I was there, I used my knowing connection with the 25th to ask people questions and figure out where they were. When a girl didn't tell me, I told her that she should be careful because I am a witch, meaning I have powers. Then I became aware of a conference going on where the speaker was talking about being here in 3D and how we should be happy. This was supposedly a spiritual conference, but it was very 3D. She came out at some point and I told her that there was no point in being here and happiness didn't matter because it's just an experience. Nothing really matters. But while speaking with her, I had a breakthrough that unhappiness actually added a discount to the experience and actually created consequences that were not good. It took away from reality and made it worse. It felt like a big light bulb moment. Not sure if this dream refers to how I've been feeling in terms of being unhappy, because this game, despite everything, is still very low vibe and not fun. Or there is some objective truth to it where this kind of unhappy vibration is actually causing something we really don't want to cause. But the reference to the nihilism that this information has caused in terms of nothing really matters because everything is really equal, there is no judgment, it's just what we want to experience, has taken away from me any will to make any effort I might have made to pick myself up and keep going. Now, I just get upset that as my higher self, I see no need to improve my reality, even in ways that would be so easy to do, even though I'm stuck here for who knows how long. Am I keeping my experience as crappy as possible so I will not miss this place and be sad about leaving? Because I'm fed up with this place at this point, but mostly with the fact that while I know I can change my reality, I am not. I find this frustrating and helpless. And I know, just from the Telegram group, I know that many of us feel this way. It's like, okay, so we know we are Neo. Meanwhile, this reality is still as crappy as always. Is there a reason for this? So beyond obviously wanting to keep the shell in place, is there a reason for us not even improving our own lives to any extent? So here's the answer. Yeah, so we have discussed a lot of this already. So here's what we will say. First, when the person in the dream talks about a discount, quote unquote, this is very much the answer Clea wanted to hear or was searching for the past few days when she was saying, when she was thinking to herself, am I doing any harm by being so unhappy? Because you know how here we like to think of, for example, in New Age spirituality, oh, I shouldn't think this way because then this bad thing is going to happen. So we already said that's not true. Nothing will happen unless you intend it. And if it's not intended, you can have the worst attitude you want. They were chuckling. It doesn't matter. Nothing will happen from it. So there is no right or wrong way to think or to feel or to be or a certain way of feeling that sets you up for failure. Oh my goodness, I've been thinking about bankruptcy, and therefore now all of a sudden I'm going to manifest the bankruptcy. You know, these are the concepts that we like to believe at New Age spirituality level, that you have to be careful for every thought you have in your mind. Because if you're too obsessed with a thought, all of a sudden it's going to manifest, which absolutely is not true. The only thing that manifests is what we actually intend to have manifested. So in this dream, there was some of that. So Claire's been thinking, my goodness, what am I doing here? And then she's between this, like, oh, I'm being so unhappy, which is not good. And then at the other end of it, there is, but it doesn't really matter because, you know, unless I intend for something, it doesn't matter. There's no wrong way to be. So I can be unhappy and there's nothing wrong with that, which is absolutely true. What happened in the dream is that what the explanation of this discount is, it was almost like you have the zero line in the middle and you have plus on top and minus on the bottom. She meant this as in, you're not just a zero when you aren't happy. You're actually taking away from, you're chipping away from your reality. You're making it worse than it was, which even at 3D level, we can understand that, right? When you're unhappy, you're not just taking things at face value, but you're actually taking away from your enjoyment. And that is absolutely true because Clea thinks about this every time she interacts with her cats. Her cats are perfectly aware of what's going on. But there's so much more in Clea's opinion, in Clea's judgment, so much more gracious about it than she is. They're not in a hurry. They're not impatient. They're just as lovely as always leading their life. She's the one who, in the way that she thinks of it, is acting out and being dissatisfied and being all antsy and all of that. Whereas in her estimation, again, she should be more like the cats. She would enjoy more if she was more like the cats. Now, would she enjoy more if she took it more in stride like the cats? Yes. Is she doing the wrong thing? No. You cannot be doing the wrong thing. We already said a million times, there's no wrong way of acting here. There's nothing wrong that you could possibly be doing. But the dream was to bring home to her that, yes, you're making yourself more miserable by indulging in this, by saying, well, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Truly, it doesn't. But for your own personal enjoyment, we will bring up that perhaps you might be better served. You might be less unhappy by being less unhappy, by saying to yourself, like she used to be, she used to do, which is, let's just be more positive. Not that there is, again, any judgment that you're better by being more positive, but just not indulge perhaps in staying in a less high vibrational feeling. Now, why? Is it because the feeling is wrong? No, it doesn't really matter. But we're saying for your own enjoyment. This is why the dream came to Clea, because she goes, I mean, what's the point, right? What is the point? There is no right or wrong. So I might as well be cranky all the time, or I might be evil all the time, whatever. Doesn't really matter what you do. But at the same time, from an enjoyment perspective, Clea knows that she would much rather enjoy. And she would enjoy much more if she actually did have a little bit of a more positive attitude and maybe chilled out more, which she doesn't have to do. But she got the message that really, this is only hurting me right now, being so upset about this. And really, this discussion was going on in the Telegram group. Somebody was mentioning the fact that, well, Carolyn, when she said we just need to be more patient, we're so impatient. And yes, we are impatient. Does it mean we are wrong? No, we have a reason for being impatient. We know what's expecting us and we're eager to get there, okay? There's a reason for impatience. At the same time, you also see how miserable this is making us. So the dream was meant for Clea because she has been asking, well, is this helping? Is this just how it's going to be till the end? And already she feels much better. But she had a couple of days last week when you guys were talking, when she was feeling very frustrated, very impatient. And now she's a little bit better and she's enjoying more. So that's why she had the dream. But the dream simply was telling her you're making your experience less pleasant, which of course makes sense, right? And so you might want to think about this. The dream wasn't telling her to do one thing or the other. And in terms of nihilism, where you're like, oh, well, there is no right or wrong answer. Therefore, why do I have to be better or be more pleasant or be anything really? It's true. You don't have to do any of that. We told you from the beginning, you don't have to do anything. So the question is, what do you want to do? What experience do you want to have? Because while there is no right or wrong experience, some experiences are more pleasant for you. And so which experience do you want? And this is all the dream was meaning, which is, that you're happier when you are happier, when you are less cranky, when you do take things in stride. So maybe you might want to consider doing more of that, as opposed to say, well, I hate it here, or whatever the case might be. So that was the gist of this dream. We already recognize the other themes of I'm a witch, meaning I have powers, and we are bending reality. We're flying on a broom, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, there is the 3D, the religious 3D, and I'm meeting 3D people and that kind of thing. But of course, I know what I know. I not only have powers, but I also have my connection to the 25th. And so I know what's going on and where my friends are. And that's perfectly fine. As we said, the rest is pretty obvious. So I hope that that was helpful, because I know it's helped me a lot. And I was like, well, that makes sense, even though in the moment it's not so easy to absorb. but it did help. I am feeling much better now. Lorrayne, thank you. The distractions really help, where we can actually immerse ourselves and not think about the fact that we feel stuck. Me, yes, absolutely. Lorrayne, okay, on 7/29, Clea had this dream, and this is part 1. I was at the top level of the FBI and everything was over. We had cleaned up everything and there was no more evil in the world. We were winding down. People were leaving. The old system was dead. We decided to keep a skeleton structure with this man and this woman in charge, but I didn't even know who would work in the field. I was getting ready to move on, but none of us knew what we were going to do. Everyone was fending for themselves. Many of us were sitting at a long table preparing to leave. And this one guy from Argentina, who was pretty unattractive and had one arm that looked like a tentacle, decided that he wanted a woman to take with him so he wouldn't start over alone. He caressed me, and for a moment I leaned against him, but I didn't want to be with him, so I pulled away. Then this other scrawny, unattractive man from Greece, who was not old but not young looking either, also showed interest in me, and I considered pairing myself up with one of them to avoid the unknown of being alone, but I decided against it. I tried to talk myself into liking these guys and imagining a life with them, but there was no way. Then I saw the first guy focus on someone else, and for a split moment I wondered if I'd missed my chance, but nah, I was fine. I didn't want to be with this person. Then a male friend of mine came up to me and said that he was going to Florence, which was hopping and full of people and life, and told me I should go with him as friends. And I decided to do that because it sounded like there was so much going on there. It's so many people that I would find someone if I wanted to, and I would definitely have fun no matter what. Before leaving, though, I warned these two people at the top, who I knew from working together with them up to that point, that they couldn't fall back into the old ways, because there were many of us heavyweights out there and we would be watching them. That's the end of part 1. Me. Yeah, so we will go over this very quickly. So Florence really stands for New Earth. So this dream very much refers to what's happening here, what has happened here, which is the FBI stands for the system. The system basically is collapsing, has collapsed. Everybody has left. Nobody's working there anymore. All the heavyweights, all the ones who are pulling the strings, have left, including myself. We're all part of 3D. We're all sustaining this reality. This reality is no longer sustained. In fact, as I was leaving the FBI, I was thinking, who's even going to work here? Like, we leave these two figureheads in charge, but who are they in charge of? There's really nobody left. And so we're keeping it there as a shell, so it looks like it's still there, but it isn't really. I know it isn't, because we are leaving. And then, of course, there is the pull of 3D still. Claire's saying, there's some compromise to be made if you still want to be part of 3D. This one guy is old. The other guy is a tentacle for an arm. And they were laughing. It was pretty weird. And Clea is still saying, oh, do I really, maybe I can make this work, this 3D work. But no. And then this friend comes up and says, no, let's go to New Earth. Because that's what, again, Florence stands for, which is going to be hopping. It's going to be fun. And you're like, screw that. Let's move on. Let's go to Florence. Because we don't want to we did have a fear of the unknown. Like, do I want to go to New Earth? We know we've gone through this, but now it's no longer the case. We know what expects us there, and there is no comparison. We don't want the old anymore. So we're not interested in 3D. We're not even interested in 3D chambers. We're not even interested in going with the aliens. Again, the little arm tentacle also stands for that. You can see it as a metaphor for that. Really, we are not interested in anything except for New Earth. We are ready to have fun, and that's what it is. Oh, and the part, of course, where we tell these people, say, hey, we're going to be watching you because we're not going to have any more of this. We're not going to have this low polarity, this low vibrational experience anymore. Again, we're keeping the shell in place just because we're like, yeah, we might as well keep the shell in place so it doesn't look like it's completely gone. But it doesn't mean we want anything like the old system. So we will be keeping an eye on this. And that's what we're doing, right? We're the ones keeping it in place in the very weak way that it is being kept in place. This is reality. The FBI is collapsing, just like everything else. We already said people are resigning or have passed away or have had multiple excuses to leave. They don't have nearly the manpower they had before. And the ones that have left are NPCs, meaning they just look like they intend, but they intend nothing. It's a shell. It truly is a shell. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this dream interpretation, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.